So this is day 5. Each of these days I was able to get about a 15 to 20 minute session in. I decided to try hay again, but this time I was offering him to sniff my free hand and keeping the hay down at my side, so that if he wanted to reach for it, he would have to put his head next to my body. He was kind of nervous about the change. My goal was to kind of try to get on the side of him, so that way I could eventually reach out and touch his shoulder. So everything was going well up until one of the barn cats decided to wander over. And apparently Arlo has never seen a cat before. Of course, this cat was really wanting attention and really didn't want to leave, so we dealt with him in there with us for 10 minutes, and it took quite a while for Arlo to calm down even after he left. But we ended up ending the day on a good note, and now I know that cats are something that we have to work on desensitizing to in the future. The cat started drinking out of his water trough, and Arlo was actually so afraid of him that he was trembling right here. So this is day 6, and day 6 ended up being a huge day for him progress-wise. I wanted to show this little clip. This was the first time I walked up to him that day. And here I'm not making contact with his nose, I'm just doing an approach and retreat. He's still really nervous about me actually reaching out and touching his nose. And you'll be able to see how reactive he is in a second. I actually do reach out and touch him right there, and that's the reaction I was getting every time that I was initiating contact with his nose. So I decided to go and grab a lunge whip. On day 1, I had worked with him for a little bit with a lunge whip. He was allowing me to touch his nose on day 1 with it. I really want to try to get to his shoulder. I feel like he's just very sensitive about his head, and if I can get past his head and make contact with his shoulder, he'll be fine. So the lunge whip allows me to do that without getting right up next to him. It's just an extension of my arm and allows me to stay a little bit safer. So this was after about 15 minutes of working with the lunge whip. He actually did allow me to get next to his shoulder, and he realized, hey, that kind of feels good. I was actually able to rub him all the way back over his hip, and I also took the whip down both front legs. The only spot I had a negative reaction was when I did his chest. Otherwise, he was fine with me touching everywhere. on top of his back, neck, and front legs. I always want to try to encourage him to be curious, and right here he actually shows a little bit of his personality and begins to try to chew on the lunge whip. At first I thought his right side was going to be his easier side, but after actually making contact, I realized that his right side he's very protective over. You can see here how he keeps his head turned. He does not like seeing me in that right eye. I'm not sure if he's having trouble seeing out of it or if it's just his personal preference, but anytime I approach him, he keeps his head turned so that his left eye isn't on me. And when I'm on his left side, his head stays straight. Here's the first time I go lower down onto his leg. I was really shocked that he stood there like this for me touching his legs. Usually their legs are very sensitive. He's allowing me to switch sides. Takes a break to chew on the whip again. He's really got really comfortable with me touching him with this whip. Every once in a while I try to sneak in a nose touch, but he still is very sensitive about his face. He really doesn't want me anywhere near his nose. So day 7, I started out going in with the lunge whip, and he allowed me to walk up to him and touch him a little bit. I gave him a big break by going and working one of my other horses, and then I came back in with a smaller stick to try to touch him with that, and he noticed a difference right away, that it wasn't the same whip in my hand. This one's just a little shorter, so it'll allow me to get a little closer to him. And it also doesn't have a string on it, so it's less awkward for me to hold everything. So after a little while, he realized that this stick was okay too, and that it gave just as good back scratches as the whip from the previous day. By this point, I had already been rubbing him a little bit under his chin and on his neck. And again, he's really okay with me being on that left side of him, but as soon as I try to position myself on his right side, he gets very nervous. He was still pretty nervous about the other stick that I had, so I decided to put it down and see what would happen if I approached him without a whip or stick in my hand. So on his left-hand side, I was able to scratch all the way back to his shoulder. Of course, the hair was flying. And I keep trying to get on that right-hand side, but you can see he just automatically turns his head so that he blocks me from getting on that side. Here, I actually reach my hand around his head and I mess with his mane a little bit. I think here I'm actually able to scratch the right side of his neck, but still his head is blocking me from being able to get any further on that side of his body. Me trying to take this video here was another task in itself. It took him a little while to allow me to approach him with the phone in my hand. He's so sensitive to any change. But I'm very happy that his first week ended this way.